Okay, good morning. Welcome to the Delaware County Council meeting, January 26th, 2021 at just a little after 9 a.m. Go ahead and call this meeting to order. Would everybody please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? And Tony, would you like to start us off? Thank you.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Tony. And can we get a roll call, please, Steve?
Mr. Ballard.
Here.
Miss Chambers.
Here.
Miss Lassiter.
Here.
Miss Piper.
Here.
Mr. Quakenbush.
Here.
Mr. Webb.
Here.
Mr. Alexander.
Here.
Mr. Hughes.
Here.
Miss Patterson.
Here.
Miss Smith.
Here.
Okay, and I need a motion for the approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Excuse me, before I get there, we got a motion from Jessica, second from Brian, but before we get there, Denise, agenda was posted.
Yes.
Yep, thank you. Any discussion on that? Roll call, please, Steve.
Miss Chambers.
Yes.
Miss Lassiter.
Yes.
Miss Piper.
Yes.
Mr. Quakenbush.
Yes.
Mr. Webb.
Yes.
Mr. Ballard.
Yes.
Mr. Alexander.
Yes. All right, and we're going to start off with a presentation from the courts. They've asked to be put on the agenda today, and we'll get you guys right in. Oh. Hey, Kim, let me stop you for just 1 second. I need to go back and indicate too, I skipped right past it, but any questions from the public may be directed to the county council web address at countycouncildist@co.delaware.in.us. Again, that's county council dist@co.delaware.in.us. Sorry about that.
Can't hear.
Is your mic on there?
Is it lighting up?
Is it? I'm not. Not at all.
I'll tell Jim Fluke.
All right.
Hang on, let's
He
get
won't be
you.
able to hear.
We can
He
go
won't
on.
be able to hear, he said.
I have one.
This one?
Oop, hang on, you're gonna pull rounds.
No, it's not.
Well, that'll be, we can push the podium toward us.
We'll make it work.
Seen a lot of moving the past few days.
That one's not as long as the other one.
I don't know why that mic wouldn't be working
Yeah.
if the switch is on. Watch that cord going back.
And you want this on loudspeaker right now?
Whichever one we use. This will pick around it. I don't know if that one will reach now.
How about now?
Can you hear me through that? No? Do you want me to take my mask off?
That's up to you.
Well,
Let's make sure.
Let's make the rest of the
yeah.
room. Can you hear okay? All right. So Emily's passing out a copy of the spreadsheet to anybody who needs that. What I'd like to do is ask our prosecutor to come up. He's going to share a little bit about the need, and then I'm going to talk about the numbers.
Thank you, Wayne.
Is it these? Or, okay. Everybody should have a copy of it.
Yes.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Eric Hoffman, Delaware County Prosecutor. I think the need for Circuit 6, I think, has always been there. It's there now. It has been since the last time I addressed you for all the same reasons. We're having to try cases twice. You get convicted in city court, and because it's a court of no record, they get a redo in the circuit courts, which means you start all over. So your victim comes in, particularly in a domestic violence case, your officers come off the road, typically on overtime. Your civilian witnesses come in who may have seen what happened. They testify, all line up in city court. You get that conviction. They file for their redo in circuit court, and it is just that, a redo. And so you have victims, particularly of violent crimes. Domestic battery is a Class A misdemeanor that's filed in the Muncie City Court, that will look at me and say, that's not fair. Why is it that I have to tell my story twice? Why does he get to have 2 trials? Why do I have to go through this again? And my answer to them is because that's the way the law is right now. And that's a tough pill for many of them to swallow. And oftentimes what happens is they choose to not go forward because they don't want to test, they don't want to go through it again. They don't want to go through cross-examination of getting battered and beat in front of their children twice. And I don't blame them. And so what the bottom line of that is, the domestic batterer gets away with it, quite frankly. That's the same is true for DUI cases and handgun cases. You prosecute a handgun case or a DUI case in city court, I convict them, they get a redo. So we got to bring the city police, county police, whoever off the street. Again, typically these things happen at night, so we're talking about court time during the day, so they're coming in on overtime to testify for the second time. And So that's the need. And a lot of these convictions are important in that they serve as predicate convictions to make higher crimes higher. So if you get convicted of a domestic battery the first time, the second one's a felony. You get convicted of a possession of a handgun without a license, which I'm going to tell you, or Muncie, Delaware County has a handgun problem. If you don't see it in the paper every day, take a look. How many shootings we have, how many handguns are in the hands of juveniles in this county, young people in their 20s. We have a handgun problem in Delaware County. Not a gun problem, but a guns in the hands of a criminal problem. But in any event, you get that first conviction of carrying a handgun without a license, it then makes subsequent crimes felonies. The same thing as you know with DUI. If you get convicted of a DUI, as a misdemeanor, the next one's a felony. So when you're dealing with a court of no record, as with city court, that complicates things. It makes certain things impossible. One thing that I didn't even think about until we met with Scott, I think it was last week, is a transport issue. We now have prisoners who are going to be housed in our new building, who will need to come to city court to get their cases heard, right? So a vast majority of your major felons, your murderers, your rapists, your robbers, your burglars, have pending city court cases, DUIs, handguns, domestic batteries. So now we have to transport them from Wilson School back downtown to be heard. Now, there's been lots of discussion with the city police and the sheriff, and my understanding is the law is that because it's a municipal court, the city police have to do that transport. They don't have transport wagons or transport vehicles like the sheriff does. So do we really want to have these violent criminals transported daily to go to their hearings in the city court? I didn't even think about that till we sat down the last time, and that's a logistical issue. Again, I'm just here to say that the need is there. The need hasn't gone away, and I don't think it'll ever go away. I think the state sees that, and Judge Voorhees can speak about that because she speaks on or sits on multiple statewide committees. But in my opinion, the Indiana Supreme Court is going to mandate it anyways, sooner or later. They're going to get rid of town courts. They're going to get rid of city courts for all of the reasons that I've already issued or talked about, because they're courts of no record. And they want to move towards courts of record. The prior Chief Justice, Randy Shepard, said as much. He flat out said it. So I'm just here to say that the need is still there. It hasn't gone away. And then I think the judges have some numbers for you, unless you have any questions. Ron.
You made a comment. I can't quote you on it, but I remember it. When the town court in Yorktown was abolished,
Yes.
you made the comment that you weren't going to file any cases in that court.
In Yorktown?
Maybe it wasn't you, but it was the prosecutor at the time in Yorktown, and that's the way town court in Yorktown was eliminated, because there weren't any cases there. Do you have that prerogative as prosecutor to decide what courts these cases are in?
Yes and no. So felonies, no. So you want to just stick to misdemeanors, because that's basically what we're talking about. Felonies are all done by a rotation with the circuit courts. Okay. Misdemeanors, yes, I have the discretion to file in a city court or the circuit courts. So in all reality, I could force the issue by filing them all and transferring them all tomorrow to the city court or to the county court or to the circuit courts. That's not something I necessarily want to do. First of all, I don't like playing those types of games. Second of all, it's not the way that the statute's set up now. It would all fall on Judge Fike and Judge Cannon, and how they can absorb 30, 40,000 cases. They can't. It's not fair to them. It's not fair to their staff. So to answer your question, I can. But what's the wisdom of doing that? I mean, sure, I can say tomorrow, all misdemeanors will be filed and then circuits 4 and 5, and I'm transferring all of them, taking all criminal cases out and infractions and misdemeanors out of the city court. I can do that today. But you got to look at the ramifications of that, and there are plenty, and probably more than I even can think about, to be honest with you.
Why were all of the courts in the county raised to circuit courts from, one was a county court early on when we eliminated city court years ago?
That was before my time, Ron. I don't know.
The state, they created all 5 courts from what I was made to understand to circuit court level, so that the load could be shared between the 5 courts, and to give the prosecutor levity or prerogative as to where he could get the process through on a timely basis. I don't know where that's been lost in the process, but why is city court so overloaded compared to what it used to be? It used to be a traffic court before your time.
I obviously can't speak before my time, but I started in city court my career 20 years ago, and it's really not changed. That's where we file the misdemeanors and the infractions. So you're talking about, and because I didn't bring my numbers because I foolishly thought my office was down the hall, but it's not. There's empty walls there, so I can't. But my recollection when we met with Scott last week was that over a 3-year period, we filed a total of don't quote me on this, but I want to say 30-some thousand infractions and misdemeanors in city court. Now, granted, a majority of those are infractions. The prosecutor files infractions, misdemeanors, and felonies. So those always got filed, at least as long as I've been here in the city court. And that's, those cases don't take as much time to resolve as your robbery, your rape, murder, drug dealing, and so on. So there's a higher volume, but a less time per case, if that makes sense.
I've got a question. How many hours per week are the courts actively doing business?
I couldn't answer that.
I mean, is it?
The judges could.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's one of my questions, so we'll just put that out there.
One of the reasons I can answer that is because I can't be in all their courts, so I have deputies that do that, and then I only handle the criminal, and I know they have a civil docket, and I have no idea what their civil dockets are. So, I mean, there's no way I could even guess that.
I have a question about the transport. Is there capabilities to do a video court from where they're currently at and then the circuit courtroom?
You can do, and the judges, I think, are better to speak to that than me. There are certain things you can do via video court, and we do Zoom hearings now because of COVID on certain hearings, but there are certain contested things, sentencings, trials, some other hearings that you have to be in person because the defendant in Indiana has a right to literal face-to-face confrontation. And the Supreme Court's been clear, not through a video, even though you and I think that, I mean, that to me is face-to-face, but the Supreme Court's interpreted that as in the same room, I'm the defendant, I get to look at my accuser in the same room. So certain things, arraignments, initial hearings, some bail things, but sentencings, trials, some of the bigger contested things have to be in person. Sure. Anything else?
Any more questions? We'll move on, if you would, to the next.
To try and answer a couple of those questions before I get started on the numbers. So in terms of the hours of operation, court staff are there from 8:30 a.m. to at least 4 p.m. There are a lot of days that goes over. Generally, court's in session except during the lunch hour during those hours. So every court has like 2 criminal days and 3 civil days. So for example, in Circuit 2, my criminal days are Mondays and Thursdays. And if I have a trial, then it depends on how many days that trial is going to go, the civil hearings that are scheduled. So my trials would start on Monday. And if it goes 2 or 3 days, then whatever civil hearings I have on Tuesday, Wednesday get bumped because criminals come first. And so then those would have to be rescheduled. So the trial goes as long as it goes. Generally speaking, trials are going to run overtime in the afternoons and evenings. We try to avoid overtime for the sheriff's department in doing that, but sometimes that can't be helped. So I don't know if that answers your question. Yeah.
5 days a week.
Yeah,
Okay.
Monday through Friday. And we also have our 4D court, which is our child support court, and it runs generally most of 3 days a week. And that is a commissioner that we have, and he hears those cases. And then we also have juvenile court, and juvenile court runs out at the YOC, and that runs generally 4.5 days a week, but depending on trials, if you will, for juveniles in either the delinquency side or the chin side may run over on that half day, and so maybe operating at a full 5 days. And then back, Ron, to your question, in terms of the circuit courts, that happened in the 90s, that we went to full circuit courts instead of 4 superior and 1 circuit. Sorry.
1999.
99. And so I think I understood your question, and if this doesn't answer it, tell me, but we all have the same jurisdiction. We all hear the same cases. We all divide out the felonies. We all divide out all civil cases. If city court didn't exist, which the state wants to get rid of them all, but if city court didn't exist even back, let's say in 2000, this issue would have come to a head long before now. Because when we came to you 2 years ago with the weighted caseload numbers, the current weighted caseload numbers for all 5 circuit courts were already over capacity of what our judges can handle. And if you add the city court cases to it, really we need another 2 full judicial officers to handle all of those cases. But we came to you saying we need a 6th circuit court, and if we have another full-time circuit court, then we believe we could handle all of those. We'd still be over capacity, but it would be much closer. So this would have come to a head a long time ago just because of the sheer number of cases in the Muncie City Court. Anybody questions on any of that before we talk numbers? Okay, so you've got the spreadsheet in front of you. When we first did this sheet 2 years ago, I will tell you that we were putting estimates together, and we put it together as what we determined to be a worst case scenario. In the meantime, because we understood it was getting back to us that there were some concerns about it, we sat back down and we went through the budget and we made some modifications. So if you look at kind of the full top half of the sheet, that was the original estimate that was done when raises were happening, and so we included the raises. On the bottom middle part where it says City Court revenue 2019, $409,000, that was taken off of the report that City Court generates to the state. And so we took the numbers that will come to the county instead of going to the city. Based on 2019 numbers, we believe that $409,000 would have come to the county instead of going to the city if this were a county court. So in looking at the total cost, the $676, $657.92, when we deducted the $409 in revenue, we had a $267, $657.92 county cost. From there, we deducted off of that 2 amounts of $5,000 each, one for the Circuit 6 judge and one for the Circuit 1 judge. The county supplements a judge's salary to the tune of $5,000. You can take that away when a new judge is elected or comes into office. You cannot do it at any other time. So we all talked and agreed that you could take off the $5,000 for the new Circuit 6 judge and $5,000 because Judge Voorhees is retiring the same year. You'll have a new judge elected to the Circuit 1 court. And so you could deduct $5,000 as the supplemental pay for that judge, taking away $10,000 there. Originally, we had assigned 3 public defenders. We think that you can get away with 2 because they operate with 2 now in city court. And so we deducted one of the public defender salaries off. We also had estimated that you would need 3 deputy clerks, but in the meantime, we've gone to e-filing. And most of the payments that are made to city court as a result of infractions, when people pay their infraction costs and fees, are done online. So you don't need that 3rd clerk position, and so we deducted that off as well. We have 3 court reporter / bailiff positions assigned to the court. That's necessary. We know that they're going to need 3. In order to try to accommodate and meet the need, the judges agreed that from the court's current employees, we would donate 1 position to the Circuit 6, and then we would figure out amongst ourselves kind of an office sharing arrangement where when a court needs help with a particular thing, let's say, for example, Circuit 5 needs help with tax sale, then one of the staff from one of the other courts would go in and help with that. And then you see an item there called user fees, and we put $30,000 there. I want you to look to the left where you see the $200,000 to $300,000 user fee amount. So when people are on probation, they pay something called probation user fees. City Court currently has approximately $400,000 in their probation user fee account. Whatever is in their probation user fee account at the time that Circuit 6 comes into effect will transfer over to the county probation user fee account. And we can only use those funds to defray the cost of a probation officer's salary. But that's what we use our current county probation user fee account for. when those funds go into the county probation user fee account, we will be able to put that in our budget as a savings on probation user fees, on probation salaries. So we expect approximately $200,000 to $300,000 to transfer into the county probation user fee account. We put $30,000 on here as just an amount that we thought was reasonable that would deduct off of salaries each year. We also know that the people who are placed on probation now through city court, those types of cases will continue to be placed on probation through the county when it becomes a circuit court, and that we will continue to collect probation user fees as a result. So that money's not going away. We will continue to collect probation user fees. If you wanted to use more than $30,000 in a given year, you could. If you wanted to use less, you could. We just put $30,000 in there because we thought that was a reasonable sum. So that took us down then to the court costing $56,775.25 annually to operate the court. And that is a worst case scenario, because if you'll notice at the top in the spreadsheet portion, we've put everyone in at the max health insurance, family, max that it could cost. We don't believe that every employee will take that. I mean, we know as a general rule, not every employee does. If you had 3 employees that did not take that max health insurance amount, this court would now be operating in the black. So it depends on that number, but the number I'm giving you is worst case scenario. The additional 2 things that we didn't know at the time, but have learned as we've met with folks, is that the prosecutor's office, their deputy prosecutor who handles city court, they receive an amount from the city that contributes towards that person's salary. And that amount is $47,000. So that would have to be picked up by the county. And we also know that the sheriff's office would need an additional bailiff because we have an officer who is in court with us anytime we're in court. And so there would need to be an officer assigned to that court. And Emily's put together numbers, including all of the benefits, that would be $59,384. So that number would have to be considered as well. There are some other things that we can't put on paper that we believe to be true, but we can't document. For example, this $409,000 that's the city court revenue is based on a court that operates part-time. So now that the court would be operating full-time, cases would run through faster, there would be more fees that would be generated and collected. But we don't know how much that's going to be. As I said, we expect that we'll collect more in probation user fees. But again, we can't put a number on that. We can just tell you logically, we know that that's going to be true, but we don't know how much. And then there are those costs that we know that the county incurs that, again, we can't put numbers on. Victims who have to testify twice. People who don't get convictions or that the prosecutor can't use when they're looking at serious gun or DUI charges. Those are things that we can't quantify, but we know that those are costs to the county and they're costs to your taxpayers. So while we can't put a number on it, we know it's out there. So that's the summary from the court in terms of what we've done to try and save money so that this court operates as close to in the black as we can get it. If you have questions, I'll be happy to try to answer them. Emily may have to address something if it's something specific.
I've got a question real
Yes.
quick. So you've got the $56,775 as what would be, what would be overhead for the county. And then
Right.
we had talked about $47,000 for the deputy prosecutor. Is that correct? I want
Yes.
to make sure. And then an additional $59,000 for a bailiff, totaling $120,000 as in overhead incurred, correct?
Well, when we did our numbers, if you take the 56,775, the 59,384, and then the 47,000, we come up with 163,000.
That's terrible adding on my behalf then.
Well,
if that's the case.
don't ever ask me to do math without a calculator, but Emily did this for me, so I'm relying on Emily.
Say it again, it was 163.
163, 218. And I've rounded a couple things there, but the 163, 218 is the bottom line, what we came up with. And again, I want to point out that that's worst case scenario. It's possible that you could take another $57,000 off of that. And it's actually possible you could even take about 80,000 off of that, depending on what that bailiff does with their health insurance.
But at this point, that's only supplying that court with staff. Is the figures that we have here. That
the
doesn't.
sheriff, the prosecutor, and the court.
That's everybody.
That's everybody.
Right, I understand that's all the people, but the court still has to operate. I mean,
Right,
there's a
so
cost
we-
to operate.
Right. So what do you mean by operate?
Like supplies and furniture and how you're gonna
Right.
get the money for the equipment and all that.
So, yeah, so a couple of things there. So number one is that we replaced like desks in the court offices not too long ago. We still have the old desks. We've actually had those moved to the new building. So those are available for the new court staff. So that's not going to be an expense there. There are, I think, some things that we can do through replacing maybe some other furniture with some budgets that wouldn't cost the county anything. That would assist in helping with some new furniture, let's say in the prosecutor's office if they need it, in the clerk's office if they need it. So there are some things there that we can try to do. We're willing to sit down and try to be inventive with this and think outside the box because we know that the county needs this. It's just, it's sometimes takes those conversations to sit down and try to figure those things out.
We have that extra hearing space that we did not furnish, that we were going to use just for overflow hearings. We have like portable equipment that we can use and just put a table in there. So we could use that space temporarily to give the time to do the build out. So the only thing we'd have to furnish is, chairs and a temporary bench and some tables, and the recording equipment just to get us going. And then obviously we need space for the court staff, but I have the desks. I can give computers out of my budget. So it's kind of like whatever we need to do to make it happen, we will work on it to give county time to do that build out in that space.
And we have 2 years before the court would start anyway.
Right.
I mean, we already have that built in.
Well,
So-
Kim, I think that's what we're all looking at is the next 2 years. When we sat down to do this budget this year, the state, AIC, everybody's telling us we need to really look the next 2 or 3 years down the road at where we're going to, how our funds are going to be, and they don't look good.
We understand. We do understand
Yeah.
that. From a court perspective, it's a necessity. But in having these conversations and trying to look for places to cut and trying to look for places to supply things that you're not going to have to go out and buy, I think we've covered a lot of bases in trying to get this down to a point where it's manageable.
Honestly, I don't know that any overhead right now that we incur is manageable. And I guess that's where I wouldn't say confused, but, literally from a $3 million shortfall to an $8 million shortfall. And now we've got the state who has been absolutely silent on everything here, saying that the next 2 years, we're going to have shortfalls this next year and the year following. I think DLGF, Donna's talking, but the DLGF had talked about the idea that 2023 is where we're going to really be hurting. So, that's the way I'm not discounting there's a need for it. I kind of feel like there needed to be more communication on this, and I'm not quite sure what necessarily happened there. But from a fiscal standpoint, for me, it's just, we've got things right now that we're still trying to figure out how to pay for because of the shortfalls and because of the governor shutting this state down. So that's where I'm at with it when it comes to incurring costs to the taxpayer. I'm not discounting there's a need, but if there's no money to pay for it, there's no money to pay for the build out. If you're going to have incurring costs every year of overhead of $163,000, we've got to figure out where that comes from. And to raise taxes on the citizens right now in this state, in this county, would be irresponsible irresponsible. I don't know how else to say it.
And what we're saying about the
know.
build out is that we've got the hearing room that's already built out. So it's finished, it's carpeted, it's painted, it's there. It was initially intended to be a hearing room. It is big enough that we can make it work until you get through that hurdle. So what Emily was saying is we have temporary recording equipment that we bought as part of our COVID plans. So we can put that in there. So all we need is some chairs, a temporary bench, and 2 tables for council. That's all we need in that room to make that work
For a
until,
few years.
yeah, I mean, until they decide, you guys decide, the commissioners decide that they've got the funds then set aside to build out the actual Circuit 6 courtroom. So
And-
we can make it happen.
And going back to like when we first presented this was when we were doing good, right, financially. And when we knew they started talking about moving us out there and there was space for Circuit 6, if that's, what we were talking about doing. So when we were coming to you at the very beginning of this, we were in a totally different financial space. And we thought, what a better time when the state's talking about forcing us to get rid of town courts. What a better time to bring this in and make it all happen rather than being forced to do it. Where if they force it and we don't have a Circuit 6 made, then you're going to incur every cost. We have to hire master commissioners. The state will not help with any of that. So we were trying to be ahead of the game rather than be behind the 8 ball. So that's why we came to this at the very beginning, that we've known this need is going to be there. We knew that this space would be available, and we were trying to make that all happen so we weren't forced into you guys covering everything. That's when this all started. It wasn't, oh, we're going to go do this while we're financially hurting. This was before all of this happened.
And what Emily's saying is accurate. If the state does away with city and town courts and they mandate it, and that's a very real possibility, then we're not in a position at that point, because we hadn't gone to the Commission on Courts, we didn't ask for a new court, where all those cases then get filed in the Circuit 5 courts. And then we have to come to you and say, now you have to hire at least 1 master commissioner, if not 2. If you do the Circuit 6, the state pays for the judicial officer's salary. If you don't, and you end up having to hire 1 or 2 commissioners, the county's on the hook for the entire amount. And that's everything. So everything we've given you here, plus the judicial officer's salaries.
I have a question about the $409,000 city revenue.
Yes, sir.
Is that just strictly from 2019, or is that because I did P&L budgets, it was kind of like average out the last 3? Is that a 3-year average or just 2019?
That's just 2019. It's an annual amount. 2018 was slightly higher than that, so we used the lower number just so that we weren't overestimating.
Be safe.
Mhm.
The other question I had is the raises. You said those are already incurred. Is that going to increase? Is that a mandatory yearly increase?
That's what, no,
That
that's
was the
what
year that they
you
gave
guys
us the
did.
raises. And so I had a spreadsheet with and without, so I just left the one with because I already had my spreadsheet set up that way. So that was the year that they gave us the raises.
Okay.
We weren't sure what was going to happen, so we calculated without and we calculated with.
Yeah.
Since they went with, we took off the without.
Thank you.
Uh-huh. Any other questions?
Okay.
Thank you. If you think of anything, you can email me or one of the judges.
Thank you.
Okay, we are on to transfers. Donna?
We gotta do the minutes first.
You didn't do
Yeah.
the minutes yet.
I don't have that on my sheet, do I?
Mm-mm.
Oh,
We were supposed to add that. Denise sent us an email.
yeah, she did.
Yeah, let's go ahead and,
The minutes aren't on here, but you sent them a thing to add it.
Yeah,
what's the date on that?
January 4th.
I need a motion to approve the January 4th minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Motion from Piper, second from Ballard. Any discussion on that? Changes, corrections? If not, I'll roll call, please, Steve.
Miss Lassiter,
Yes.
Miss Piper,
Yes.
Mr. Quakenbush,
Yes.
Mr. Webb,
Yes.
Mr. Ballard,
Yes.
Miss Chambers,
Yes.
Mr. Alexander.
Yes. Okay, and now we're on to,
Ready?
ready.
Circuit Court, 140, Secretary, Adult Probation, minus the 28,398. A140, Pretrial Screening Analyst, plus 28,398. Total request 0.
Move to approve?
Second.
Second.
Motion from Piper, second from Ballard. Discussion on that? Yeah,
Broke one here,
Oh, you need another one?
please.
I don't have one on me.
yeah, we've got enough people in the room and things going around.
Why do I not have that?
Good morning again, Emily Anderson. I don't know if you remember, but last year we brought this to you where we had a vacancy in probation and an admin assistant. And we'd like to rename this line item. Jeff, the chief probation officer, took a job description to Pam. She approved that. It's pretty much just taking that position and utilizing it in a way that is better for the entire office. Some of it is administrative work. Some of it is other things that are lacking. So in order to do that, we had to bring it before you because it is a line item change. It is not any kind of a salary change. It's the same salary, same numbers. So I'll let Jeff explain that, what the job description change is.
Thank you, Emily. Jeff Hanser, Chief Probation Officer. This is just a reclassification of a current position. It was a probation administrative support staff position. It became vacant last year. So I wrote a new job description to allow this position to become, have some supervision authority over probation offenders. What that'll do is give me an extra officer that will then be able to supervise transfer cases, which we get from other states and from other counties. So in the long run, it's just a better allocation of the resources we have in the department in terms of personnel. So instead of having another administrative support person, it essentially gives me another officer in the department, which we need at this time.
Any questions from council on that?
Do you have this? I don't have it.
Should be on the transfer agenda.
Very first
Very
one.
top.
If you want to see the job description, we can give you a copy of that.
Yeah, I believe you guys,
We submitted it last year and you asked us to hold off till after the move.
did they email those out to
Yeah, I don't have
the job description, the final job description to
Yeah, I don't have
To HR,
council?
We did.
but I have
Okay.
copies here if anybody would like one.
I don't have it either. But I don't know why.
Well, we had asked HR.
Thanks.
Well, let me back up.
It should be the very first one
It's
on
your
your
very first
transfer
transfer.
agenda.
28.
Not on all of them.
Yes, 28,398
I
is
don't
the
know how it
amount.
would be,
Yeah,
not
here.
be on some and
It's
be
not.
on others.
See. That's not the transfer.
Yeah, you gotta, it's the transfer agenda, not the appropriation. That's an appropriation agenda.
Yeah.
You can go ahead and
Yeah,
give
we
me
don't
a
have
it.
it.
Well, then we don't have
That's
this.
a copy of the job description.
We got it now.
We have it now, but we didn't have it. Scott, do you need one? Or you good?
No, I'm good.
Got it.
Did this go through human resources?
Yeah, we had Pam look at it and she approved it. The date on the back shows the approval date. The very last page has Pam's approval date on there.
At the end of the year, last year, I think was it in November?
Yeah, I think we brought it to you in
yeah.
November and you asked us to wait till we moved. So we are moved in.
I talked to both Emily and Jeff on this and asked them to wait till the move was made.
Yeah.
On that. We'll get one down to Mary there, please.
And this vacant position, it's been vacant since August. They are hurting. They really need this person back. But we did want to respect Scott's wishes and hold off for a few months. So we did do that. So we're just now asking for that position to be filled. But we want to fill it, in a way that's more beneficial to the whole office, rather than just putting a support admin staff back in there.
Well, and you guys talked to Finance Committee back in November or December, one of the two. I think, well, it would have been November.
Yep.
About going ahead and working on the job description and,
Right.
and making this a more making the job description match what you wanted this job to
Right.
do and all that. And I appreciate you waiting on this. In Finance Committee, we asked also whether or not this position was necessary or if they could continue to hold off. And they, you guys indicated that you need this
Right.
back.
So I want to just be clear, we're not creating any more overhead here. This is a position that's already been budgeted for,
Correct.
correct?
We just never refilled it. It was already in the budget. He just
This isn't a
asked,
new position.
correct.
Correct.
We're just reclassifying it.
Yeah, the position came available and towards the end of the year. And so due to the budget time, we were in budget time when the position became available. So we held off filling it at that time. Have several staff wearing several hats right now. And as we got closer towards the end of the year with the move and then with COVID resurgence, we also were able to hold off. But now that we've completed our move, this position, it's just a reclassification of a position that already existed and is budgeted for. Several things we're trying to do with the department kind of hinge on this piece. I would point out to the council as well, for 2020, our department brought in more in user fees. There was a discussion about probation user fees just earlier. We brought in more user fees in 2020 than we have in 6 of the past 12 years, even with the shutdown period. So
Say that part again. I didn't hear the numbers.
so in 2020, we brought in more in probation user fees than we had in 6 of the past 12 years.
6 of the past 12. That's part
Yeah,
of it.
so Jeff has initiated this incentive for the probation officers to collect fees. The judges have donated money, their own money, as part of that incentive program. Each month, whoever collects the most fees get a gift card. Not only that, they have been told as probation officers that your probation user fees support your salaries, support your place in this office, and how important it is to collect these user fees because it does help your budget. So it has turned around the probation user fee collection in that office. And like he said, even during COVID, even though we didn't have face-to-face probation collection, they still collected even more because of this new incentive program that he's put in place.
Any more questions from council? Roll call, please, Steve.
Ms. Piper,
Yes.
Mr. Quakenbush,
Yes.
Mr. Webb,
Yes.
Mr. Ballard,
Yes.
Ms. Chambers,
Yes.
Ms. Lassiter,
Yes.
Mr. Alexander.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. The clerk's 125 has been withdrawn, both of those transfers.
And reason being, they were done last year. So
Thank you.
those are ones that were done after the budget was turned in, and you did them sometime between July and the end of the year. So Becky automatically put them in the right positions. So that's why they're withdrawn. They're really there. They was just already done. Public Defender's Office, 175, I couldn't tell you what that is. Minus 30,697 to A175 plus 30,697. A174 minus 30,697 to B174 plus 30,697. Total request 0. I assume these are public defenders.
Yes, they are. We had 2 public defenders, Shelley Harvey, Office Administrator. We had 2 public defenders resign on December 31st. So the board has met and approved 2 new public defenders. And so this is transferring from one line item to the other line item for those public defenders.
So just to be clear, we're not creating more overhead, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And we asked the same question of these two. I don't know where you guys are at on percentage of caseloads and all that stuff right now.
Motion or
What's that?
seconded. There wasn't a motion or second for discussion.
Oh, okay.
Second.
Thanks, Denise.
Mary motioned, I second.
Who's got the motion?
Mary,
Mary? Okay.
I got the second.
Motion from Chambers, second from Piper. Thanks for Denise for catching that. Where was, Finance Committee. We asked the question, and like I say, I don't know where you guys are at with percentages and caseloads and all that stuff right now. Are these two necessary to refill? Would be my question.
The courts are still holding initial hearings for people who have been arrested, whether they are Zoom from the jail or Zoom from the defendant being remote locations. They are still holding initial hearings. So we are still being assigned on all the, a majority of the cases that we would have already been assigned. So our attorney numbers, while are getting a little more breathing room for me from being like 97%, 98% from their always teetering at 100% full. Yeah, we have to replace these guys. When we start trials back up, we're going to be full tilt with our caseloads.
Do you know when that'll be?
They're saying hopefully sometime in March. Like right now, March 1st is the hopeful date, unless that gets pushed back again, when trials will reinitiate.
Okay. Anybody else? Any questions from council? Roll call, please.
Mr. Quakenbush,
Yes.
Mr. Webb,
Yes.
Mr. Ballard,
Yes.
Ms. Chambers,
Yes.
Ms. Lassiter,
Yes.
Ms. Piper,
Yes.
Mr. Alexander.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jail 103 lieutenant minus 41,156. 103A lieutenant plus 41,156. D 108 corporal minus 32,100. E 108 corporal plus 32,100. Total request 0.
Move to approve?
Second.
Motion from Piper, second from Ballard. Any questions from council? Again, the Finance Committee asked the jail, I think Sheriff and you were both in the room there for Finance Committee, and whether or not these positions had to be filled at this point or we could hold off. And I think you told me that on one of them you may be able to.
Right,
But-
Nancy Marvin, office manager. We are going to fill the lieutenant's position, obviously. The rest of them then will remain empty for a little while as we have to do testing and everything else, and we're going to wait and do all that till after we're totally moved. And then once that's completed, then they'll do the promotional process after that.
Are you guys still looking February, 1st of February?
Sometime in February,
Okay,
yeah.
sometime in February. Okay. Any other questions from council? Roll call, please, Steve.
Mr. Webb,
Yes.
Mr. Ballard,
Yes.
Ms. Chambers,
Yes.
Ms. Lassiter,
Yes.
Ms. Piper,
Yes.
Mr. Quakenbush,
Yes.
Mr. Alexander.
Yes.
Statewide 911, B 106 supervisor. That should be changed to minus 34,248. That's per Paul at finance meeting. C 106 supervisor plus 34,248. Total request 0.
Move to approve?
Second.
Motion from Piper. Where did we get that second? Is that
Webb.
Webb? Motion, or second from Webb. Questions from council?
Is someone leaving? Or is this?
I've had, okay, let me do it in the order that it makes sense to me. I had a full-timer go back to part-time. So I had a supervisor step down and go into that dispatcher slot. That's the, the first one, the B106, going to this C106. So that gives me 2 supervisors openings. I've had one opening for a long time, so that gives me 2 supervisors openings. So I filled those 2 supervisor spots. One was taken care of last year. on the transfer, and then the second one here takes care of the other spot. By the time I'm all said and done, I've got one that just gave me a notice who's resigning, going back to a previous job. I've got one that has 22 or 23 working days left. I've had another one that he's retiring effective April 8th, April 9th maybe. And then I've got another one in there. So I'm going to have 3 or 4 full-time openings. Plus I've got no part-time people. They've all been moved up. So this is just the first of several employee moves that are coming.
Is it because they're burning out or just different circumstances?
Some of it's burnout. We're not getting the applications. We're getting applications. Sometimes they're not the right people. It's hard to compete. There are businesses that are advertising $15 and $16 an hour with no second or third shift. It's just hard to get people into work. Public safety 24/7 unless they have a specific draw to that occupation. So it's nothing new. I've been told, issues with us and the jail, and it's, we're all in the same boat. It's hard to hire, and we've got a lot of turnover. Plus on us, it takes 3 or 4 months of training before we get any good out of anybody. So we're just in a spot. Some of it's due to COVID. I've got one off long-term sick. So there's several reasons why I need to move people around and fill some slots.
Well, I remember you giving me the tour of your place, and I appreciate that. It helped me have a better understanding. And from what I witnessed, I recognize the importance of keep hanging on to your guys who are already trained, and especially supervisors, and as thinly spread as you are. So appreciate you doing what you're doing with what you got.
Thank you.
Any more questions from council? Roll call, please, Steve.
Mr. Ballard,
Yes.
Ms. Chambers,
Yes.
Ms. Lassiter,
Yes.
Ms. Piper,
Yes.
Mr. Quakenbush,
Yes.
Mr. Webb,
Yes.
Mr. Alexander,
Yes.
CASA JCAP project, 171 FICA, minus 3,542, 173 health insurance, plus 3,542, total request 0.
Move to approve.
Second.
Got a motion from Quakenbush, second from Ballard. Any discussion on
Do you miss me yet?
that?
Emily Anderson, Court Administrator. This, Ashley is on a 2-hour delay, so I'm going to cover all of her items today. Her kids are, every kid is on a 2-hour delay, I believe. This was just moving some money out of FICA into health insurance. She wasn't sure where her money would be at the end of last year when we budgeted everything in September, so she's just moving some money around now that she got all of her grants in. That's all this is doing, just moving money around.
Any questions from council? Roll call, please, Steve.
Ms. Chambers,
Yes.
Ms. Lassiter,
Yes.
Ms. Piper,
Yes.
Mr. Quakenbush,
Yes.
Mr. Webb,
Yes.
Mr. Ballard,
Yes.
Mr. Alexander.
Yes.
Thank you.
Go to the
Okay, the
addendum.
first one, it should say Justice Center Communications for the department. So it's C-117, Communication Tech, minus 31,953.22 to D-117, Communication Tech, plus 31,953.22, total request 0.
Move to approve. Second.
This is the one where my full-timer stepped down and went to part-time, and then my supervisor stepped down into this spot. So that's what opened up the previous supervisor spot.
Did we get a motion and a second on that yet?
Yes.
Okay,
By Jessica, second by Miss Lassiter.
okay, all right, thanks. Any discussion from council?
I'd like to go back to our discussion about your employee status.
Ron, you're going to have to speak up.
Who could I take my mask off?
No.
I've never had anybody say that to me before in my life. Making me lose my train of thought here.
Sorry.
Someone that's been there for a while has decided not to be a supervisor anymore. And in the past, you told me that the supervisors actually work on a shift as well as just looking over things.
Yes.
I'm a little concerned about this, Paul. I've been around this since the day it started. And I know you haven't been at it forever, but you've done, as far as I'm concerned, as good or better job than anyone we've had running communications for many years. Are you studying this, or do you need help in how to conquer this problem? I mean, it's like every time you turn around, the federal government's sending more money to people that are unemployed, and then locally we're saying you can't find people to employ. You know, it doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, we have to have people that can pass a drug screen, that have no criminal history. There's a deal breaker for
A lot of people,
some that apply.
percentage.
There's people nowadays that don't want to work 24/7 jobs. They don't want to work nights. They don't want to work weekends. They don't want to work holidays. We've been working a lot of overtime with being short, so that compounds it. And then with the COVID, you know, we've had COVID hit us hard twice. We don't know for sure. When I hire somebody, I try to hire somebody that it has the intangibles you can't teach. The, you know, honesty, they have a good previous work record. You know, they have the things that you can't teach a person to be a good, you know, a decent person and honest and have a good work ethic. We can teach them the other stuff, but until we get them in there and start running them through all this, you know, I've said it from day one, and I think each director has said it. It's not a job for everybody. You know, you're confined to a desk. You're answering a phone 8 hours a day. It's got to be a special person who really wants to do that job. And it's tough competing when other businesses are offering, you know, $15, $16 an hour to start without having to work nights and weekends. So,
well, we went through this, been a couple of years now, and then everything just sort of went out the window when the city took over the emergency medical service in the city. But have you thought about possibly exploring some kind of a level for these folks as they get seniority? They could get a higher pay, kind of like we did at EMS.
They do some
people stealing our EMTs.
They do somewhat with their longevity that they still get after, I believe after they complete their 5th year.
Well, I'm talking about some other kind of incentive.
Sure. You know, a couple budget cycles ago, I asked for like shift difference or, you know, some other things. And at the time, there was just not money to do that. Monetary and benefits and perks are how you keep people there. They work many times a solid 40 hours a week. There are times they're in there 8 hours, and if they're busy, it's tough for them to get breaks. So they're working, a minimum, we try to get them a half hour break. But if they're busy, they don't get those breaks sometimes. We are taking applications through a process called Indeed. We are getting a lot more applications, but some of those end up being people that are just filling out applications to satisfy their unemployment benefits. So, some of those are panning out, but some of those are, a waste of time for
I'm
us.
old school as far as that goes. I worked the second shift in the factory for 6 years of my life. And I believe you should have shift incentives. It's a financial burden, but it's something I think we should consider. We need to do something to incentivize. This is the heartbeat of the community here. If you don't have 911, I mean.
I agree. The reason this last supervisor stepped down, because our supervisors don't make that much more than a regular ComTech or a dispatcher. And they're the last ones that come up for overtime. So if you're a dispatcher and you work your basic job with a little bit of overtime, you're making as much or more than that supervisor's making with less responsibility.
Well, that's the kind of evaluation I think we need to see by budget time, because we're going to have to do something, because you're just coming up year after year.
Yeah, and it costs us money and time when we hire someone and we put them through the training and they don't work out.
Well, Ron, and I appreciate your comments on that for sure, but I think that the type of incentives you would, if it's for retention, the type of incentives that you would need to retain those people would be so much greater than we could possibly think of giving. I mean, there's going to be turnover in those positions, and I'm not saying they don't need to be looked at all, because I think they should. I agree with you 100%. But both in your department and in the jail, there will be turnover, no matter what you pay, to a certain extent.
Sure.
Obviously, we've got some restraints coming for the next several years. They're gonna tie our hands a bit.
If anybody has suggestions about a new or different location to look for possible employees, I am open, because we went through a process that HR was involved, and we ended up interviewing 3, and by the time we're done, none of them fit exactly what we were looking for. And in a job like that, public safety, I don't think we should settle just for a body. We've got to make sure that they're capable of doing the job and doing it correctly.
Well, you can't just settle for a body.
Right.
When it comes to that. I mean, when you're answering the phone and in those moments of, tragedy, emergency, whatever you want to call them, you've got to have a calm, collected head on the other line, because I assure you that person that's calling is not going to be. And I'm sure you guys also deal with I would say some verbal abuse as well. I can attest.
No one calls 911 because they're having a good day.
No. So there's something to be said.
And if they do, they've got the wrong number.
And yes, and
Have you approached Ivy Tech about some of this training and such, that maybe young people that are just coming right into the workforce might be willing to make $32,000 a year, no matter what shift they make?
Yeah, but some of those people, that's a great idea. Some of the young people that come in, they're using us as a stepping stone.
That's always going to happen.
We've got several. I've got one that's probably going to go to Muncie Police. I've got one that's on the Muncie Fire list. I've got one that wants to go to the sheriff's office. So, and I tell those people, as long as you give me a good, honest effort and you work while you're here, I'll help you to get to that next phase. We had one that went in, she got her nursing degree. Great. I hope that what she did for us will help her in her next
We will.
career. Same as the ones that go on to police or fire, what they learn with us, phone skills and people skills, that'll make them better. Hopefully it'll make them better at their next career. So if anybody's got ideas, I've asked our people, who you want to work with, start doing self-referrals, the people you hang out with, start referring them. So we just need to get our numbers up, and we can't really speed that process up, but we need to get the people available for us to pick from.
Are we using social media at all to put this stuff out there as well? Okay.
Right.
I personally think that if you're able to move your people into fire, police, and EMS, that's a positive reflection for your department. It could actually be a benefit and attract the recruits that are trying to make it to those fields. And as it would be a stepping stone, but it could be a 2 or 3 year stepping stone that you could even use as a benefit to recruit better candidates.
I had that discussion with Joe Winkle when he was police chief over at Muncie. And, he had talked about that. And then the administration changed. If we have people that are waiting on that list, but they go through that list so quick, I think both Sheriff's Department and the City Police and the fire recently have gone through those lists pretty quick. But I would love to be able to, those people have a draw to public safety. So if they know they're going to sit on that list for a year, absolutely, I would hire them and get them in there and, expose them to the world of public safety from our side of it.
I would assume having dispatcher experience would be looked fondly upon when it comes to the other public safety entities.
I think so. They know more what they're getting into.
Yeah.
They know the culture.
The
lingo. And that's what I tell people when we hire them. You're learning a new language. You're learning a new culture. You're dealing with people. Everybody's not having a good day. Like I said earlier, nobody calls 911 because they're having a good day. So they do learn skills that help them in whatever they do. The lady that went into nursing, I've talked to her a couple of times. She goes, my people skills of dealing with people and being able to multitask, she said, that helped me transition right into my nursing job.
Well, I don't know. Maybe there's a bridge or something like that when it comes to this. But this is a problem. I think that it's not just here. It's in Indianapolis. It's in bigger cities too. So
well, we're not going to solve that right here, right now.
I'm aware.
You guys are okay. I'd like to move on and get a vote on this one. Steve, could you give us a roll call?
Miss Lassiter,
Yes.
Miss Piper,
Yes.
Mr. Quakenbush,
Yes.
Mr. Webb,
Yes.
Mr. Ballard,
Yes.
Miss Chambers,
Yes.
Mr. Alexander.
Yes. Thanks, Paul.
So just for information, we do have our 911 board, which meets this afternoon virtually. So there's another avenue of people that I can bounce ideas off of. I appreciate the discussion and the concerns. There's a lot of good ideas. If you have, if you want to talk about those more and you have ideas that will help us to find the right employees and to retain the employees, I'll absolutely listen and
well, and I think from an incentive standpoint too, I mean, there was a reduction in the amount that, by about $200,000 that, or roughly there, and I think that we need to get a discussion on that,
Right.
and that's the place to have it too, is at the 911
Sure.
board, so, or communications, or whatever, what is that board called?
It's the 911 board. It's
Okay.
different configuration of folks, but it's the same thing. They're an advisory board.
Okay.
This is the first time you've met in over a year, right? Because you had to
Yeah.
reorganize, so.
Ryan, you're on our.
Yes, I can't wait for the meeting today.
So that's 4:00 this afternoon.
Fully, I'm ready.
Okay.
Time to-
Thank you, everybody.
Jail, C-119, that's where we're at, right?
Yeah.
C-119 correction officer minus 32,719.20. D-119 correctional officer plus 32,719.20. Total request 0.
Move to approve?
Second.
Motion from Piper, second from Ballard. Any discussion on this one? This was kind of the same scenario I think we talked about earlier. Was this one of the positions that you guys were going to be able to hold off on a little bit? Sheriff Skinner?
This one, Sheriff Tony Skinner, this one will be slightly delayed because of the whole hiring process, the testing, the interviews and stuff. But as soon as we get another list compiled, we hope to hire this position, and it could be, 4 to 6, 8 weeks. But that's the delay. That's every time we go through hiring process, it's the same delay.
Any questions from council? Roll call, please, Steve.
Ms. Piper,
Yes.
Mr. Quakenbush,
Yes.
Mr. Webb,
Yes.
Mr. Ballard.
Yes.
Ms. Chambers,
Yes.
Ms. Lassiter,
Yes.
Mr. Alexander.
Yes.
County Council, A-103 council member minus $13,790.78. B-103 council member plus $13,790.78. Total request 0.
Move to approve?
Second.
Motion from Jessica, second from Ron, back to first names again. Piper and Quakenbush.
Is this the transfer from?
Larry,
For Ryan's
too.
position
Yeah.
from Larry.
Any questions from council? Roll call, please, Steve.
Mr. Quakenbush,
Yes.
Mr. Webb,
Abstain.
Mr. Ballard,
Yes.
Ms. Chambers,
Yes.
Ms. Lassiter,
Yes.
Ms. Piper,
Yes.
Mr. Alexander.
Yes. Can you guys make it through appropriations, or we need a quick break?
I'm going to read the first one and I'm taking a break.
Okay,
I'll have Steve read them or something.
okay.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Everybody good? We'll keep moving. All right.
Okay, Clerk's Perpetuation Fund, 101 Deputy Clerk, $28,883. 171 FICA, $2,209. 172 PERF, $3,234. 174 Life Insurance, $120. 175 LTD, which is long-term, $120. I'll have to give that one a number. STD, $204. Total request, $34,770.
Move to approve?
Second.
Motion from Piper, second from Ballard.
Okay.
To clarify real quick, this is from his perpetuation fund. This isn't anything that is acquiring overhead for the county, correct?
This is the position we asked him to move to perpetuation at budget time.
It was taken out of county general budget time with the promise that you would appropriate it out of perpetuation. So the person didn't lose any time.
Sure.
You gave us the authority to go ahead and start paying them.
I just wanted it on the record.
Yep.
Said, so.
Any questions on that from council? Steve, roll call, please.
Mr. Webb,
Yes.
Mr. Ballard,
Yes.
Ms. Chambers,
Yes.
Ms. Lassiter,
Yes.
Ms. Piper,
Yes.
Mr. Quakenbush,
Yes.
Mr. Alexander.
Yes. Emily, are these first three,
Yeah, if you want to do all those together, those are all CASA.
those are all CASA,
Yeah.
the first three? That's the Gal CASA, the CASA JCAT, and the VOCA grant?
Yes, sir.
I would, since Donna's, I would entertain a motion to approve those
So moved.
three as presented.
Second. Jane got it.
Okay, motion from Ballard, second from Lassiter. Any questions on that?
This is just all grant funding. Again, she doesn't get her grants till the end of the year, so she just appropriates enough to get her going. And then she goes back in and moves money around just to make sure that she has everything where it needs to be. So we've appropriated stuff at the beginning of the year, at budget time, and then she comes back in at the beginning of the year and moves stuff around and appropriates the rest of it.
Any questions from council? Roll call, please, Steve.
Mr. Ballard.
Yes.
Ms. Chambers.
Yes.
Ms. Lassiter.
Yes.
Ms. Piper.
Yes.
Mr. Quakenbush.
Yes.
Mr. Webb.
Yes.
Mr. Alexander.
Yes. Steve, you want to read those in, or you?
I will.
Okay. We're on Family Recovery.
Family Recovery Court. 200 for supplies is $3,140.69. 300 training and travel, $17,420. Total request, $20,560.69.
Move to approve?
Second.
Motion from Piper, second from Ballard. You want to cover that real quick?
This is just a grant that Juvenile Court has for their Family Recovery Court. I know it says training and travel, but again, we're probably not going to have much out of travel this year. Most of that's going to pay for fees into courses that they have to attend for training.
Any questions from council? Roll call, please, Steve.
Ms. Chambers.
Yes.
Ms. Lassiter.
Yes.
Ms. Piper.
Yes.
Mr. Quakenbush.
Yes.
Mr. Webb.
Yes.
Mr. Ballard.
Yes.
Mr. Alexander.
Yes.
Problem Solving Court. 200 supplies and incentives plus $4,000. 300 training and travel plus $5,500. Total request $9,500.
Move to approve?
Second. Jane's got it.
Motion from Piper, second from Lassiter. And
Yeah,
again,
this
this
is-
is a grant.
Yeah, this
Go
is
ahead.
another grant for Juvenile Court. It's just more grant money for their problem solving court out there.
Any questions from council? Roll call, please, Steve.
Ms. Lassiter.
Yes.
Ms. Piper.
Yes.
Mr. Quakenbush.
Yes.
Mr. Webb.
Yes.
Mr. Ballard.
Yes.
Ms. Chambers.
Yes.
Mr. Alexander.
Yes.
Okay, sorry I had to leave, but I've got a question. Did you approve the VOCA grant on the first page?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. You didn't look at your papers, you don't have enough money to fund it.
Oh, see, you shouldn't have left.
I couldn't help it, I drink too much coffee.
Well, if it's not there, she won't. Are you
Well,
showing there's not enough money there?
Not with the figures you guys provided me.
Well,
She's short $2,042.
I'll let her know that you're showing that she's short. How much?
$2,042.
I'll let her know.
Well, why don't we go back and revisit that?
I mean, you can go ahead and approve it.
As I say, she won't.
It's a
I'll tell her.
reimbursable grant, but I just wanted to make you guys aware, you gotta look at these sheets I'm giving you. That's why I give them to you.
I will make her aware, and then I'll have her relook at her figures. Obviously, she won't spend it if she doesn't have it, but I'll tell her that you're showing a different figure than what she's showing.
And that could be her, she was in the red in January.
She probably hasn't submitted.
And that could be that amount that she hadn't got the reimbursement back yet. But just based on the figures that was provided to me for anticipated revenue, that's the amount she's short.
Okay, I'll tell her that she was in the red in January, and that if you go by the figures that you submitted, you're short. Okay, I'll let her know.
What's the pleasure of council on that? You want to revisit that or leave it as is?
I have a feeling it's probably that she just hasn't got the claim back from the state. Because she's usually really good about her money.
And that's a very good possibility.
Yeah.
Because that amount is exactly the amount that she was in the red, so that's what I wanted to ask.
I can call her if you want me to call her.
You guys aren't going to let her spend
No.
more than she has in the
No.
Well, it
account.
says the DLGF approved budget's 107,743.
Right, that's the budget that was turned in last year during budget hearings. And she only shows enough money to offset that budget. That's all I was given.
Let me just call her and ask her.
So I'm assuming the 2,000 is what she was in the red at the end of the year that hadn't come back from the state yet.
Okay, Donna said you're short by $2,000 according to her figures, but it's because you started out in the red. Have you not gotten that claim back yet for the end of the year stuff? VOCA. Yeah, she gets reimbursed every quarter on that. So it's not, she doesn't have it won't come in until later. Yep. So they're just making sure because she said you have more appropriated than what you show and it's because, I said it's probably because you haven't got your claim back in yet or your reimbursement in. Okay.
Are you guys good with us leaving that at your discretion
care
there?
of it.
Okay, all right.
Fine.
Okay.
Is that okay with council?
And sure. Thank you. All right. Bye-bye.
Yes.
All right, we'll move on. Where were we?
Juvenile probation.
Yep.
Juvenile probation, 122 probation officer, 1,689, 123 probation officer, 6,484, 124 probation officer.
Hold off on that. I would entertain a motion to approve that as submitted, the probation officer amounts. These are amounts, well, let me get a motion first.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Jess. Okay.
What do we got?
Jane and Jessica.
Okay. Motion from Lassiter, second from Piper. Okay, we'll just approve these as presented is the motion, and you want to just explain where we were real quick?
Right. So at budget hearings, we took the raises that the probation officers received for 2021, took it off of county general and took it out of this fund that we found money in. So this is all those amounts that I'm now appropriating for this year. So there'll be some probation officers getting paid out of 3 and 4 line items.
And the total on that's 37,469.
Yeah.
Needed by the state.
Any questions from council?
There was so much.
I just didn't want you to have to read all those in, so, all right.
Fine with me.
Okay, roll call, please, Steve.
Ms. Piper,
Yes.
Mr. Quakenbush,
Yes.
Mr. Webb,
Yes.
Mr. Ballard,
Yes.
Ms. Chambers,
Yes.
Ms. Lassiter,
Yes.
Mr. Alexander.
Yes,
You're finally done with me. Thank you so much.
thank you.
Thank you,
We'll
Emily.
never be done with you.
COVID-19 GIS, 311 contractual services, 3,600. Equipment, $400. Total request, 4,000.
Move to approve?
Second.
Motion from Piper, second from Ballard. Okay, is that a,
Yes.
That was a yawn.
that's
yes.
what I thought. Okay, all right. Didn't sound like you're normal. Okay, any questions from council?
Just a continuation of that same communications grant that we've been doing every month, so I'll be back next month too.
We'll see you then.
And this is coming from,
This one was from the George and Francis Ball Foundation. All the other ones were from the Ball brothers.
okay.
I have another one for next month. from
Again,
them.
thank them.
Absolutely.
Roll call, please, Steve.
Mr. Quakenbush,
Yes.
Mr. Webb,
Yes.
Mr. Ballard,
Yes.
Ms. Chambers,
Yes.
Ms. Lassiter,
Yes.
Ms. Piper,
Yes.
Mr. Alexander.
Yes,
Unsafe building, 310 recording fees, $100. 364 unsafe building, 21,000. Total request, 21,100.
Move to approve?
Second.
motion from Piper, second from Ballard. Any questions from council? You want to give us a short recap?
This is a fund that was created a few years back, and it is funded through penalty fees, basically, from people who do not fix up their properties the way they're supposed to. And so this appropriation reflects the amount of money that's currently in this cash fund. And it can be used to, like I say, clean up properties. I know Tom Fouch, the building commissioner, is looking at a couple, actually 3, and I don't know that we've got enough money for that. But he's been, throughout the last year, developed quite a good working relationship with the guys over at the health department. Because a lot of times when he's dealing with an unsafe building, there's also unsafe living conditions associated with it. So the two offices, my office and the health department working together, works out well. I do know one of the properties he's looking at is south of the new Justice Center. I forget the official name. And on 26th Street. So that probably would be a welcome cleanup to a lot of people.
Any questions from council on that? Roll call, please, Steve.
Mr. Webb,
Yes.
Mr. Ballard,
Yes.
Ms. Chambers,
Yes.
Ms. Lassiter,
Yes.
Ms. Piper,
Yes.
Mr. Quakenbush,
Yes.
Mr. Alexander.
Yes.
GIS map fund, 241, computer support, 18,000, 310 professional services, $235,714, 323 travel, 5,500, 331 printing, 5,000. Oh wait, I'm on the wrong line. Okay, 323 travel, 5,000, 331 printing, 5,500, 393 schooling, 5,000, 441 equipment, 5,000, total request, $274,214.
Move to approve?
Second.
Motion from Piper, second from Ballard. You want to, again, a quick explanation?
yeah.
Yep.
And once again, this is a cash fund, and it is funded in large part through reimbursements that we receive for the different activities that are funded out of this fund. The reimbursement comes from the Federal Transportation Planning Grant that my office operates with under contract with NDOT. And the largest, the professional services, this fund is used to cover the monthly costs for the Beacon website. I'm sure a lot of you here use that website. We will also be doing new aerial photography this year in the spring. And so that will be paid for out of this fund. And then the last one is a lot of the Transmap costs will be paid out of this fund. That is a pavement asset inventory project for the entire county. But it is it allows the county, the city, the towns to develop pavement management plans that are necessary in order for them to submit applications for what are called community crossing grants through NDOT. And the county has already been a very lucky recipient of a lot of those community crossing funds. And I think probably to the tune of maybe $3 million. But anyway, so that's the gist of it.
Marta, how often are the aerial photography, how often is that redone?
Well, now that we've got on this great schedule, every other year.
Oh, great.
So it's like the current photography you see on Beacon is 2019. And so now we'll have 2021 photography a little bit later in the year. And their turnaround's pretty quick.
Yeah, a couple months.
Yeah. So, yeah. And we just entered into a new, the commissioners just entered into a new 6-year contract that called for 3 flights, 21, 23, 25. And I have currently the funds to cover 80% of those costs for 21 and 23. I'll work on 25.
Any other questions from council? Roll call, please, Steve.
Mr. Ballard,
Yes.
Ms. Chambers,
Yes.
Ms. Lassiter,
Yes.
Ms. Piper,
Yes.
Quakenbush,
Yes.
Mr. Webb,
Yes.
Mr. Alexander,
Yes.
Comprehensive Plan, 310, Professional Service, 315,000. 323 Travel, 3,000. 331 Printing, 3,000. 391 Dues and Subscriptions, 3,000. 393 Schooling, 5,000. 395 Public Meetings, 500. Total request, 329,500.
Move to approve?
Second.
Motion from Piper, second from Quakenbush.
So this, once again, is a cash fund, and it is, the funds are replenished through reimbursements and that are provided through our contract with NDOT and that deals with federal transportation planning dollars. And this year, we've gone through a very extensive RFP process to select a consultant, and we will be doing a new comprehensive plan this year. And we also will be doing, in conjunction with that, a strategic investment plan that will set out sort of a short-range program of projects. The comp plan is a long-range, like a 20-year horizon document that is used to guide the physical development of a community and is intended to be used by decision makers when they deal with rezonings or subdivisions or development issues. That is a part of what our office does. So,
Any questions from council? Roll call, please, Steve.
Ms. Chambers,
Yes.
Ms. Lassiter,
Yes.
Ms. Piper,
Yes.
Mr. Quakenbush,
Yes.
Mr. Webb,
Yes.
Mr. Ballard,
Yes.
Mr. Alexander,
Yes.
Supplemental Public Defender Office Furniture and Equipment, 441, 11,500. Total request, 11,500.
Move to approve?
Second.
Motion from Piper. I didn't catch the second.
Webb,
Is
Mr.
it
Webb.
Webb? Okay. Any questions from council?
Is this all you're gonna have for this move, or?
Yes, we have taken in to account the extra space that we acquired. We gained a little bit over 4 times our space from the closet we were in across the street. So we actually are fortunate enough to have a conference room where we can hold public defender meetings rather than having to scrape up a courtroom. We have some extra offices, spaces, and we've set their modest desks and chairs in there so that the attorneys who have hearings at 9 o'clock and 11 o'clock or 11 o'clock and 1 o'clock can close a door, put up a laptop, have their files open, not have to come downtown and back and forth as much. And because I'm sure you all know that that's been a concern. We have some, that includes, we will be receiving 40% back from that amount from the State Public Defender Commission. And as soon as I submit all of those, I can't submit those until they're actually paid. So that is all eligible for our 40% reimbursement from the State Public Defender Commission. We do not need any more furniture or anything like that once this is approved.
Any questions from council? Roll call, please, Steve.
Ms. Lassiter,
Yes.
Ms. Piper,
Yes.
Mr. Quakenbush,
Yes.
Mr. Webb,
Yes.
Mr. Ballard,
Yes.
Ms. Chambers,
Yes.
Mr. Alexander,
Yes.
Thank you.
Sex and Violent Offender, 200 Supplies,
If it's okay with you guys, I'd like to read these next three in, and then we can get an explanation, or
All of
not read them in.
Read them into the record, yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, just as a motion to approve these as presented. They're all three out of funds to do with the, well, we'll get an explanation on that. If you guys are interested in doing that, I'd entertain a motion to
So moved.
approve and that's to approve the SVO fund, the DUI grant fund, and the misdemeanor fund as presented. And I got a motion from Allard, second from Piper on that. You want to go ahead and explain those?
The SBO fund obviously is fees that are collected from the sex offenders that we have to register on a weekly, 90-day, or annual basis. 10% of that's paid back to the state. The remainder of it sits in a fund for the sheriff to use for the management of the sex offender program. The DUI grant is a cooperative grant between us and the city. They manage the grant. We submit them our hours. They give the checks back to us for the hourly rates for each officer, and then we present those checks back to Donna to reimburse our overtime. And then the misdemeanor fund is monies that come to us that we can use only for situations in the jail. I have not increased the amounts we've requested since I've been in the position that I'm in now. So these are the same amounts we've used over the last at least 3 years.
Any questions from council?
That misdemeanor fund, what are you gonna use that $75,000 for?
Equipment, well, we already know that we need more cameras because we cannot cover all the blind spots that are in the jail, so we're gonna have to purchase some additional cameras. That's a big chunk of money that will go towards any other things that we find after we get out there with the inmates.
So basically, this $155,000 is gonna be used out at the new jail?
Yes, I mean, we wouldn't do anything
Every
else
bit
here.
of it?
Well, I would like to hope we wouldn't use all of it, but if it's
No, I mean, that's what you're
necessary.
asking for, that's where it's gonna
Yes.
be used, no matter what portion of it.
Yes.
Thank you.
The DUI grants used to pay overtime on sheriff's deputies, is that correct?
Right.
And you have a stop
Operation Pullover.
pullover, I couldn't
Right.
think of it, sorry.
It's not for all deputies, it's just if they work that.
That's the, yeah, on
That
that
program,
assignment,
yeah.
yeah.
And it's
Special
reimbursable.
assignment, right?
Yes.
Yep, gotcha.
Are you okay with all three of these going together, or do you want to vote on them separately?
Okay, I just had
You're okay?
a couple questions.
Okay, all right. I just want to make sure. I don't want
Doing
you.
what Donna told me and looking at these numbers.
Any other questions from council? Roll call, please. Steve?
Ms. Piper,
Yes.
Mr. Quakenbush,
Yes,
Mr. Webb,
Yes.
Mr. Ballard,
Yes.
Ms. Chambers,
Yes.
Ms. Lassiter,
Yes.
Mr. Alexander.
Yes.
just a little sidebar. I'm used to having somebody tell me when I don't do things right.
Thought I'd remind you guys.
I've been married
If you're not
63
gonna look at them, I'm
years.
not gonna do them.
Got used to
All right, so motion to approve financial transfers and to amend salary ordinance with like reductions and to amend hiring freeze ordinance 2020-015.
Second.
Motion from Piper, second from Ballard. Any discussion on that? Roll call, please. Steve?
Mr. Quakenbush,
Yes,
Mr. Webb,
Yes.
Mr. Ballard,
Yes.
Ms. Chambers,
Yes.
Ms. Lassiter,
Yeah.
Ms. Piper,
Yes.
Mr. Alexander.
Yes. Okay, I have in committee reports, I've got a Board of Appeals appointment. Our assessor, James Carmichael, brought this to our attention, and Denise, that we didn't fill this position on our appointments on January 4th. And I would entertain a motion to retain and appoint Kerry Wiggerly on that board. He's worked on that board for a while, and James says he runs a very good meeting.
I'll move to approve.
Second. Jane.
Jane.
Motion from Piper, second from Lassiter. Any discussion on that? Roll call, please, Steve.
Mr. Webb,
Yes.
Mr. Ballard,
Yes.
Ms. Chambers,
Yes.
Ms. Lassiter,
Yes.
Ms. Piper,
Yes.
Mr. Quakenbush,
Yes.
Mr. Alexander.
Yes. And we have some, we're down to other new business. We have some 2021 encumbrances.
Yes, I sent those all to you guys earlier. Do this every January. You just have to approve our encumbrances.
I'll move to approve our encumbrances.
Second.
Motion from Piper, second from Ballard. Any discussion on that?
Right there.
Yep.
Roll call, please, Steve.
Mr. Ballard,
Yes.
Ms. Chambers,
Yes.
Ms. Lassiter,
Yes.
Ms. Piper,
Yes.
Mr. Quakenbush,
Yes.
Mr. Webb,
Yes.
Mr. Alexander.
Yes. And then some other new business. Sheriff Skinner brought up some information for everybody, and I think he wants to briefly go through that. Can you do
From
that?
last year's budget.
Okay.
I would be glad to briefly go over this information. Just remember, you campaigned for that job. You wanted it. Tony Skinner, Sheriff. So some of this information is stuff that you've actually requested throughout the year last year. Some of it is stuff that I'm required to provide. So just going down the list, the first one is the pension fund update. The fund actually gained 13.85% last year in the stock market, which is amazing considering that in April we were down 13.9%. You can see what your contribution was, what our contribution was. The total disbursements, now the total disbursements has an asterisk by it because that's every single dollar that was pulled out of the fund. So that's the money that was given to retired deputies. That's all the fees. That includes also Comerica Bank, the bank that writes the checks. They like to have at least 2 months worth of disbursements on hand. So in December, they ask for January and February's disbursement monies from Baird. So that's an extra roughly 200,000 pulled out of that. So that's confusing, but I wanted y'all to know it. And then last year, I know it's always a sticking point, how much money we pay a company to manage our money in the stock market. So Baird's fees were just a little over 100,000, which if you do the math is about 0.5%. Any questions? The McCready and Keene are actuaries. Baird is the investment manager.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yes.
And then the 200,000 is roughly what we consider operating balance when we talk about county general.
Okay, yes,
That's what
exactly.
the bank has to operate the
Yep.
fund.
That's the disbursements for the next 2 months, yes.
They charge you a fee for that? Do you know what that is?
Comerica, I don't know what Comerica's fee is, and I don't know what McCready and Keene's fees are individually. And Chris Calloway from Baird said they're small. I'm using air quotes. I can find those out for you if you want me to, but he said they're minimal. But yeah, everybody gets paid for what they do.
I agree, but just always curious as to what it was.
Sure. Well, I'll add that to the list next year. I tried to put everything on this list. I created this list of information that I wanted. So next year I'll add that.
And Sheriff, I personally have been here for a long time, and I've yelled, hollered, and screamed and carried on about this pension plan. This is the first time I've seen a breakdown like this.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, Ron, I will say I was tickled to death to see you come full circle and tell Paul Singleton that you would approve some extra
funding to help retain people, so I'll remember that in September. Don't forget, I only have one vote.
Yeah.
I know. But your mouth, Careful what you say. it's active. The next one is inmate meal costs for 2020. Last year we served in the jail a little over 270,000 meals. And you see the breakdown, what our food cost is, what our employees, the top line employees, that's just the cooks. That's the 4 cooks in the jail and what their salaries are with benefits. So we combine those. Last year we averaged $1.45 per meal. I will say, look back at 2019 figures. We served little over 114,000 less meals than we did in 19. And our food cost in 20 was down a little over 134,000 compared to the previous year also. And that's just based on the number of inmates we had. The third page is a staffing analysis for the new jail. Last summer, I provided you guys all with a staffing analysis I had done that said if we ran at maximum capacity at the new jail, that we needed 18 more corrections officers. So this staffing analysis was actually done by RQAW. I went to them at some point during the summer or the fall, and I won't say I complained to them, but I made it known that I thought that every new jail project they do, they should include a staffing analysis to the county council and the county commissioners right up front, so everybody knew, hey, this is what we think it's going to take to run the jail. So if you look on the bottom left where it says total, the existing jail staff, that is just the staff that works the floor, works the control rooms, and works intake. That doesn't account for administrative staff, transports, the jail commander, the commissary, and those type. These are just the floor people. So 58, they say we need 68. So this staffing analysis says we're 10 short. So based on last year's staffing analysis and this staffing analysis, we're somewhere between 10 and 18 people short. I think it's probably closer to the 10 number, but this, I just wanted you to have that. I didn't want it. Well, you got it. They verbally told us it would take less people to run this new edition than
Well,
one you had.
that was stated.
The same people.
Very same.
Not your fault,
Yeah.
just telling you. Well, right in this room. I got it.
We understand.
It is what it is.
I understand what you're saying. I think if we go back to that preliminary book that was done, it may say it in there, but I don't know that for sure. I'd have to look back to the book.
I mean, we're just bringing this up so folks who are watching know that what information we were provided with in the initial meetings about the jail project. So
The staffing analysis that I gave you last summer, the thick one, it says over here where we're at, each corrections officer supervises, and I'm making up a number, 3.5 inmates or whatever. Over there, they're going to supervise 5.9 inmates. So it does take less staff to supervise more inmates. So your corrections officer to inmate ratio is much lower over there. But when you double the size of the jail, you still don't get away for free. So maybe everybody's right. I don't know.
Are you, with these numbers, are you assuming a capacity?
That's running at full capacity, yes, sir. That's the way both of them were done. Yep. The next page is just your population now. This morning it was like 238. Back up. Yeah. The next page is just purely information only. It's an average number of inmates we held in 2020 at our jail, and you can see from the pre-COVID number in February, we averaged 302 inmates, and then April, May, and June we were down about 32%, and then the numbers crept back up as the year. So this is just purely information. I thought that some of you might.
PTP mean?
Pretrial probation. Those are people that that in a lot of situations, they would be in jail, but they've been released from the jail. They haven't been tried yet, but they're pretrial, but they're at home on probation. So that's where a lot of those user fees comes from. That's why it's important when the probation officer comes up here and says, hey, we need more staff, we've got a vacancy, we have to fill this. That's because these people are out on probation and they're not in our jail. That's a good thing.
So then I'm assuming.
Pretrial, PTHD is pretrial home detention. So that's community corrections.
So if you add those all three together, that's.
We couldn't, we'd have people sleeping in the parking lot.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah. So those numbers are good.
Is the BTP and the PTHD, the separation there is one of those the commissioner's program or not?
Well, yeah, one is the CCC and detention, that's where they have a home and with a break with a
Okay.
monitor, and then the other one is our pretrial probation program within the adult probation.
Okay. I'll talk to you more on that later, but
Okay.
yeah.
We've got a social problem in this community.
And the last set of numbers are the commissary numbers. I know that I know Ron especially, but some of you were concerned about how we spend commissary money. So that is how we spent all of our commissary money last year. There again, it's just like the misdemeanor money. It can only be spent on certain things. I know that over the years, I've often heard people that sit in those chairs that you're sitting in refer to this as a slush fund. If you look through and see how those numbers are spent, you'll see that they're spent on training and equipment. A lot of that, almost all of it is somehow related to training, equipment, or supplies. So that's just money that you don't have to spend, that we don't have to ask you for those budget lines. Nancy would be happy to answer any questions you have about that.
Well, don't you think some of that old analogy was from the fact that the sheriff wasn't on a contract and that was in his pocket in the old days? Very fun.
I don't know that the sheriff got commissary money. I know they used to get meal money,
Okay.
sheriff sales.
Meal money. Then.
Yeah, but it wasn't commissary money.
This is from vending machines and stuff. Is that right?
We have one person that all they do is commissary. So, when inmates want to buy ramen noodles and Snicker bars, then we order it and we give it to them, and we make a little bit of money on that.
Okay.
Yeah, we're the middleman.
It's two different things. Yeah.
Yes, two different things.
You're in the vending business.
We are in the vending business. We're in a lot of businesses.
So
So, yes, sir.
So with the new facility, are you going to be extending any of the commissary, expanding any of the commissary options to increase this?
We won't, we change our commissary menu about every 3 months. We offer different things. And that's based on the company that provides us our commissary. They do the service for us. They're out of Michigan. They do a ton of counties and a ton of jails. So they see what trends, they see what items are selling best at that time of the year. So they will make a recommendation to us. Hey, this is selling hot. It's not on your menu. You need to get it on your menu. So in that respect, yes. Also, when we move to the new jail, once our inmate population goes up, I'm going to have to task a corrections officer to assist our commissary clerk on a part-time basis because she's just maxed out right now with our inmate staff, so our inmate numbers. So if our numbers go up, say 100, she just won't be able to do it. So I mean, that's on me. We're dealing with that, but she's going to need help, and we're handling that. Yeah.
I have a question about you. You're talking about the increase in numbers. Do you expect that to be from housing out of county inmates or from reducing the number of inmates that are on pretrial detention and things like that?
No, so I don't expect the pretrial detention or the pretrial home probation numbers to really go down. We love those programs. They're very successful, and we anticipate those programs to keep running like they are. Right now, the jail has, I have as a sheriff, has asked all law enforcement agencies in Delaware County to not bring to jail any misdemeanors, nonviolent misdemeanors or level 6 misdemeanors, to just do case reports, cite them, do whatever. So once we move back, once COVID is a thing of the past for the most part, our jail is going to be getting a lot more of those people that right now the police officers are just citing and releasing for the misdemeanors, you know. The courts have really, really helped, and the judges have really helped us to keep these numbers down. By when somebody comes in, they'll give them a court date and they'll release them. Whereas in the past, they would hold those people, especially on the low-level felonies, the nonviolent felonies. They would hold them until they went to court. So I expect those numbers to go up, honestly, because COVID's getting better. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Sheriff Skinner?
Well, I just wanted to make a comment. Sheriff, you've done a wonderful job of putting this all together. Thanks. I'm sure you sat there at the typewriter and did it all, didn't you? To be quite honest, she did all the commissary stuff. Thank you. I thank you. Just teasing. I know. Hey, thanks. I appreciate
Thank you.
it very much.
Thank you.
A lot of good information.
You guys have anything? Auditor's office?
Donna, do you want to talk about this? Or is that just for information?
We still haven't solved that pension.
Okay, you're right. No, we don't have.
Okay. Any other department heads? I think we've covered most of it.
I forgot.
Were there any,
Yes, so,
Before we get
Oh,
on that, can I
yes.
make a comment real quick?
yeah.
Just real quick. Just to kind of set the record straight, I had some mail that was delivered here. I haven't had the chance to read it yet because, well, I'm not exactly sure why, but I got the gist of it because it was opened mail. But anyway, we are having a death certificate problem here in the state of Indiana. I don't think that's any type of new information for a lot of people. And I want to, as an elected official, but also as a funeral director, make it known that this is the shortfall of state government. They have created this problem with the software. Funeral directors are trying so hard to do some things, as well as coroners. The coroners, I've been in contact with Rick numerous times about some of the issues we're dealing with this software. I just want to make it known to the public that we within the private sector are trying to do the best we can with the lack of efficiency and I would say overall troubleshooting and help from the state of Indiana. So this is something none of us wanted to deal with. It's putting well, it makes us have a lot of issue when it comes to cremation, but also when it comes to estate planning for our families. So I want to make sure that is out there. Like I said, I know I got a letter about it, and you know, a family that's pretty sideways, and they have every right to be. But I want to make sure we're pointing the finger at the right people here. This is nothing that the funeral directors or the coroner or even the physicians here had really, well, yeah, the local health department too. I mean, they were blindsided with this as well. So I just wanted to make sure that was stated and out there on public record.
before we get, one other thing that I talked to, we talked about this a little bit in Finance Committee, but I talked to Donna and Denise too. Our March meeting, we need to look at moving that. The thought was to move that to the Thursday that we would normally have Finance Committee meeting that week. Is spring break, and I'm understanding that several people may be out of town, including department heads and other elected officials. So I think, you know, at least for consideration, that would be, I would entertain changing that to the Thursday before, which was
March the 18th.
March the 18th.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, got a motion from Ballard, second from Piper. Any discussion on that?
Are we going to move the Finance Committee meeting?
Well, we could either not have the Finance Committee meeting, or we could move it. We could move it up, and we would move the date for input to the meeting up as well. That'd be. I'm open to to either way, or we can just hear it all at the meeting on Thursday, the regular council meeting.
That's okay.
I'm fine with
Just
that.
wanted to make sure.
Hashing it out here.
Hey, you pretty much did that today.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
listened to them all Thursday,
Yeah.
but they
Yeah.
all
And
talked
then
today.
listen to it all again.
yep. Let's just do it all Thursday if that's okay with everybody. If it's not, reflect that in your vote. Is there any other comments on that? Okay, go ahead and give us a roll call, please, Steve.
Ms. Chambers,
Yes.
Ms. Lassiter,
Yes.
Ms. Piper,
Yes.
Mr. Quakenbush,
Yes.
Mr. Webb,
Yes.
Mr. Ballard,
Yes.
Mr. Alexander.
Yes. Thank you. We wanted to give you guys as much notice as we could on getting those dates changed around. So the dates would stay the same, I think, for the cutoff for the finance, and so none of that needs to be changed. We would need to advertise the meeting at a different date, so.
Yeah, Denise will have to let the departments know because they'll have to get them to her sooner now, so.
Yep.
So she can get it advertised on time.
Well, it'll be the same, won't it? The input date, because the finance meeting is going to be the council meeting.
Right, but that moves her days back for publication.
Yeah, it has
'Cause
to
you
be.
Yeah, yeah.
So
yeah.
she has to get her stuff
Right,
to the
yeah,
paper,
yeah,
so departments have to get their stuff to Denise sooner now.
Yep.
We'll take care of that.
Okay. Anything else?
We actually did receive 3 emails. So for the folks who've been following along on the Facebook thread, we have had some technical difficulties with our county council distribution list. So Kyle and I have both reached out to our IT department to ensure that that gets corrected in the future. In the meantime, Kyle posted on the Facebook page that if folks wanted to message me directly, that I would read those off. So I have 3 people who have forwarded their emails to myself, which I will read now, and any emails we receive, once we get the connection fixed with our distribution list, all of these emails will be filed with the public record. So we will start with the first email. And I'll apologize now, I do not use colorful language, so if there are words in here, I will give you the gist of what they say, but I don't use this language in my normal day life. So, to the members of the Delaware County Council, I appreciate your time in reading this. Unfortunately, I feel compelled to write this email to you today that I would include for the record to speak of Delaware County Councilperson Ryan Webb's detrimental actions and how they affect the perspective of Delaware County. It's no secret that I have held Ryan Webb accountable for things that he says, which I and many residents find offensive at times. However, this is not simply because of a disagreement of opinion. Since taking his oath, he has caused a great number of headaches and and hours of lost productivity simply because he did not take 5 minutes to call the Prairie Creek Reservoir to ask questions. Instead, he made false allegations and stirred up the public, who then proceeded to reach out to the reservoir's office and the city and county officials and waste their time in explaining that Councilperson Webb was misinformed. I have personally seen him advocate for people to not wear masks during this pandemic, which sadly has taken over 100 lives in our county. He has exacerbated a health problem that I'm confident his actions led others to follow suit and put residents of Delaware County at risk. He has made racist remarks and posts, and considering the county commissioners provided a good resolution to not tolerate racism, Mr. Webb's comments are quite troubling. As a tangent to that, I think Councilperson Webb's comments illustrate a need for the council to follow the commissioner's lead and adopt such a resolution that outlines the council's dedication to removing racism in all forms. Most recently, Councilperson Webb has made personal attacks towards myself and others. His accusations and assumptions are categorically false and without merit. Yet even after being contacted and asked to remove the names of people listed, he maintains the validity of his post and subsequent comments. His charges have incited calls for physical violence from people, and Councilperson Webb does not even bother to condemn them, even after making calls for condemnation of comments made to his supporters. I find it to be shameful and hypocritical. I have personally received comments that are reprehensible and inexcusable due to Mr. Webb's words. One of them has threatened me personally. All of this is on top of Councilperson Webb's own use of threatening language towards myself and others. He has also made light of mental health conditions and his insults towards me by calling me
blank crazy, a nut job, and a blank idiot. I believe that Councilperson Webb reflects negatively upon Delaware County as a whole, and especially the council. I realize that there is little the county council can do to remove him, as he was legally elected. However, I strongly urge the council to make a statement of censure to show Delaware County that this type of behavior is not tolerable. Councilperson Webb must understand that he is an elected official, and as such, he will be held to a higher standard. There will be scrutiny for his positions and votes, and he must be able to hear the voices of Delaware County without attacking the people he represents. The Delaware County Policy Handbook specifically lays out expected behavior, and as an elected official, one would think that such would be the baseline for his behavior. Ideally, I would like the county council to urge him to step down, but I implore you all to at least censure him. Thank you for all of your time and your continued efforts, Cameron Grubbs. All right.
And I feel that is not appropriate to be stated in a council meeting. To me, it's not. That's a personal attack. That is not, I would not want any of my family members, if you have a problem like that, to me, say it behind the walls. That's a personal attack.
Right.
I'd like to, if you don't mind, I would like to comment on that. Mr. Grubbs is, many of you are aware, but maybe not everyone's aware. Mr. Grubbs and a group of his followers have been attacking me since April, asking me to step out of the race since I've been elected, asking me to resign. Just a few days ago, those types of constant attacks and misrepresentations, calling me a racist, a white supremacist, a child abuser, a woman beater, things like that, have caused someone else, maybe someone in his group, maybe not, but someone has taken those acts and decided to send my family member a message advocating for her rape and murder, and that I should be shot, and that we should hang ourselves. So I want to make it very clear. I am a county councilman. You feel free to judge me all you want on my duties as a county councilman. You speak to me outside of that, and you speak to me as a person, and my personal preference towards social issues and national issues, because I'm very vocal about both. You're going to get a different reaction from me when you don't speak to me in a respectful manner. I have no problem. Matter of fact, I welcome all feedback and criticism of my job and duties as a councilman. When you're addressing me on my personal and social opinions, I'm going to address you in that same manner. Mr. Grubbs is upset because I made that public about the actions that him and his friends have caused. I hold him accountable for that, for inciting that, much like they have incited or held President Trump accountable for inciting the riot at the insurrection with his words. So I find them no different. As outraged as all of these folks are, not one person has phone called me. I've asked multiple times to meet in person and to sit down, to have a conversation, to work out their differences. In fact, that is the reference of violence threatened against them, as when I offered and said where I would be at what time. If anyone has anything they would like to discuss, we can meet in a public place, come up to me, and we can work it out. Well, like everything, that was misinterpreted and spewed as a veiled threat of violence. And then after a little bit, it was just total violence. So I can't help it when someone misinterprets and misunderstands something. I can only explain it to you. I can't help them understand it. I've made it very clear when I could see that it was being misunderstood, and tried to help clarify my viewpoints, because many people know that text and things like that can be misunderstood when you're not having it voice to voice. You can't interpret pause and voice tone and things like that. But even after that, there was no ability to understand the misinterpretation. So I have to assume that it's only purposefully being misunderstood. And I've commented on this, I've addressed it, and I don't plan on addressing it any further. But I will clarify one thing: I will not be resigning. Send them emails every month. I'm not going to resign. I'm going to do what the thousands and thousands of voters elected me to do. And those thousands of voters don't get cheated out of the person they chose because a handful of people are upset that my views don't conform to their views. And that's all I have to say about it.
All right, so our next email. Council members, I am concerned about the amount of misinformation and division Councilman Webb has spread throughout our community.
Did the same thing.
This one is from a young lady, and it pertains to Prairie Creek.
This is something we need to be doing.
Can I address that real fast?
Let me confer with Bill here.
We can enter those on the record without you having to read them.
Okay.
I mean, if we're going to go down this same path.
All right.
Well, I wanted to clarify, this is
Doesn't have
probably
anything to
going to
do with them
continue
being a
because there's
council
an
person.
online campaign to invite everyone and anyone to submit as many emails as possible. Matter of fact, I come prepared today to sit here till 5 o'clock. I thought there'd be 100 of them because they've been doing this for weeks now, and it'll probably carry over for subsequent
That's
meetings.
not the part of our business for the county.
All right, so we have 3 with the subject of Councilman Webb, and then we have a 4th one that came through. This one pertains to the question for council and Sheriff Skinner. What is the potential liability issues to the county if a correctional staff officer is seriously hurt when 2 staffing reports say that the new jail will be well understaffed? Respectfully, Andrew Pop. So again, what is the potential liability issues to the county if a correctional staff officer is seriously hurt when 2 staffing reports say the new jail will be well understaffed?
Yeah, it's not.
Well, I think the sheriff's office falls under the same as county highway or EMS or the jail or dispatch. If any of our offices are understaffed, then I think the county is somewhat liable if they've been put on notice that we're short-staffed. So let's hope that never happens. That's a hypothetical, and I don't really spend a lot of time dwelling in the realm of hypotheticals, but let's hope it doesn't happen. But there again, those staffing analysis were done if that jail is running at max capacity. We all know that jail isn't going to run at max capacity, hopefully ever, but if it does get up to the mid 400s or higher, it's going to be a long time down the road. So this is something I think we can work together at and incrementally increase those numbers. It's not overnight higher, and I recognize that. So
You expect that with the wheel and spoke design that'll help eliminate a lot of that? Being able to better manage the population with fewer people?
it all comes down to how many bodies we have in beds. That's simply what it all comes down to. So, if our numbers stay in the upper 300s or around 400, yeah, we're going to need some more staff, but we're not going to need that full 10 or 18. We get up higher, then obviously that puts more people in danger. The more inmate movement you have, the more bodies you have in beds, the more staff. It's just that simple. So, we'll do what we can to keep those numbers down, but we all know that moving in, it's no secret, we're short-staffed over here right now, so it's the way it is. Yeah, we're just dealing with it. Yes, sir. 40 years ago, this jail over here was under design. The old jail had about 50 people in it. Overcrowded, inefficient, lawsuit. County agreed, 1980, build a new jail. The new jail was built with capacity of 99 cells, single, possibility of 99 cells, 198 capacity. We were told then by the experts from Washington, D.C., some Department of Corrections people in a conference in Boulder, Colorado, that no matter how big you build the jail, it'll fill up. And that jail went from a 99 capacity. There was supposed to be a juvenile center in there. It didn't happen. The cells for that were converted to women's, which gave it more capacity. 40 years later, we're overloaded. So 40 years from now, you'll probably be seeing a room addition out there if population goes. Now, ironically, our population in this county our total population has not increased. So we've got some social and educational problems in this county I've heard talked about at the Chamber of Commerce meetings years ago that we haven't solved yet. And it's not the sheriff's fault or the county commissioners or county council or anybody else that's trying to do their job. We just have social issues in this community that are causing people to have problems and end up in the court system and in the jail. I challenged my fellow councilman the other day to go through the budgets. I did this one time a few years ago, but I'm not going to do it again. But go through the budgets and look at all the budgets that are approved for this year that have something to do with law enforcement or the courts or community corrections or whoever. Add all that up and see how many millions of dollars that is compared to what it costs to actually run the county government in this building. It's just mind-boggling when you see the numbers, mind-boggling. And it's a lot to do with our social responsibility. Well, much for that speech. I agree.
Well, and I think too, back to that, what's frustrating, actually infuriating to me is, and it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with you, Sheriff, but I know what I was told in this meeting by the company that's now saying that we need more staffing. I remember what I was told. Okay. And that's the irritating thing about this is, were we misled then? I mean, that's an honest question that I'm going to ask right now. Were we misled? Because at that point of time, this jail was supposed to be much more efficient than the one we currently have, of which we would not necessarily have to have more staffing. That's what was said.
Absolutely. Maybe less, right?
That's what was said. So personally, RQAW, I mean, come on up, let's have a talk. I mean, that's how I feel about it right now, because I feel misled and I'm infuriated about it. And like I said, I don't think from a standpoint of staffing, the sheriff's doing his job. Is it irritating to me? Absolutely. But he's doing his job and he's trying to advocate for that jail, for the staffing issue. Our job as council is to find the financial being to be able to do this. And I don't know that we can right now. And I don't know that we can in the next 4 years, depending on what the state does. We have no flexibility in our budget, guys. There's none. I've been advocating for more flexibility for months, and constantly I get told, well, it still feels like I'm being told this, we're not in session. So, I mean, it just goes back to it. Sheriff, I'm not frustrated with you. I just feel like we've been put in a position where maybe honesty wasn't forthcoming as it should have been. And I'm not saying that about you. I will say that about RQAW, honestly, because they're the ones that told us. I mean, I don't know what else to say. They're the ones that told us.
That's a big selling point.
Absolutely, it was a selling point. So,
just real quick, I want to get back to some of the comments that have been made by the public. We've all received emails and all of that stuff here, but Bill, from a county council standpoint, is there anything that could be done if a council member acted inappropriately? And I'm talking about just emails and things like that. I mean, are there, and I'm not at all suggesting that we do this. We've had discussions privately about this throughout the month, but.
The statutory authority extends only to removing a member. The council can expel a member for violation of an official duty, or if the council person is unable or fails to perform the duties of the office. Then there's several other removal statutes outside of the council itself. The term censure doesn't appear in the Indiana code anywhere, actually. And if you look for a definition of censure, censure is an official statement of reprimand, particularly one given to a person in an office of trust or confidence who has violated the obligations of that office. So again, it relates only to the duties and functioning of the office that the individual holds. We have no bylaws or other documents adopted by the council regarding conduct of members. Reference was made to the personnel handbook for Delaware County employees. That does not apply to members of the council. And I guess finally, my comment would be that if the council were to entertain a discussion of that, we have to remember the rights afforded under Robert's rules, which are a right of due process. You don't simply adopt a resolution. There would need to be an investigation. There would need to be an opportunity to respond, perhaps to discuss, make findings, and there would be also a duty of confidentiality. It is not necessarily a public process. So that would be my summary. I thought the commissioners in the statement that they adopted earlier this month was quite good. It said the commissioners under Indiana law do not have the authority to rebuke, censor, or remove any duly elected official for remarks they may have made. That power rightfully only rests with the voters. That'd be my summary.
Well, and that opportunity came in November, and what has happened has happened. What I did do was pass out a copy to all council members, and we should all be aware. It's good to update ourselves on what's in the personal policy. I pass out social media policy guidelines. I would encourage all council members to read through that. It doesn't necessarily apply to you. I will say that, in my own personal opinion, it's up for us to set the example. So we have all said what we have said as far as that goes. The commissioners are the executive. They've issued a statement on this, and as far as I'm concerned, that's all I've got. So.
Can I ask you another question?
Sure.
I've been flooded with emails about the idea of censorship as well, and referring to the city of Muncie and how they have gone about that. Can you explain that from the Robert's Rules order for the county?
I believe I have not researched the city, but I believe that the city council has adopted rules of conduct, either by resolution or ordinance. And they can, they would be required obviously to follow those, and they would also be required to afford due process rights. Again, nothing of this nature. Even if there is a right that's not statutory, but a right, an inherent right of the council to take action against a member, it can't be done. I think the term is now being used as a snap judgment. It would have to be a process.
I would like to take a second to just apologize to everyone and all the members of the council that a personal vendetta has made its way into this room today.
Thank you.
And for those folks who are curious about what our social media policy is, it is available on the county website. You can simply use the search bar and put handbook, and I found it was like the top result when I did a search looking for it. So it is available to the public. And like Scott said, while we're not held accountable for what's in that policy or that handbook, as ambassadors of not only the council, but as the entire county, it's just good that we all stick to it.
Anything else? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion from Piper, second from Ballard. Roll call, please, Steve.
Ms. Lassiter,
Everybody stay safe. Yes.
Ms. Piper,
Yes.
Mr. Quakenbush,
Yes.
Mr. Webb,
Yes.
Mr. Ballard,
Yes.
Ms. Chambers,
Yes.
Mr. Alexander,
Yes.